She knew if they caught her, she wouldn't survive the night. The sound of boots crushing gravel echoed behind her. Dogs were barking in the distance, and the only thing in front of her was a dark, endless forest. No food, no light, no way back. But what she did next would turn her into one of the most fearless women to ever chase freedom. The breaking point. She had learned long ago not to cry. Crying made them angry. Speaking made them angrier. So she stayed silent. Her days began before sunrise. The cold air clung to her skin as she stepped out of the small wooden cabin where she slept on a thin bundle of straw. The plantation stretched wide across the land, fields of cotton that seemed endless. Every morning was the same: work, pain, silence. But something had changed inside her. For weeks she had been watching the tree line at the edge of the fields. Beyond it was forest, thick, dark, mysterious. Most were too afraid to even look in that direction for long. They said the woods swallowed people. But she no longer feared the forest. She feared staying. The night everything changed. It happened after sunset. A mistake, a small one. She had dropped a sack while carrying it toward the storage shed. Cotton scattered across the dirt. That was all it took. The shouting started immediately. She didn't fight back. She didn't scream. But something inside her snapped. That night, lying on the straw floor, staring at the cracks in the wooden ceiling, she made her decision. She would run. Not tomorrow, not next week, tonight. Planning the impossible. Escape was not something you talked about. Even whispering the idea could get you punished. But she had been watching. She knew when the guards changed shifts. She knew which dogs barked the loudest. She knew which path led closest to the forest without crossing open ground. She waited. The moon was half covered by clouds. Perfect. When the last lantern dimmed near the main house, she moved. No shoes, no bag, nothing to slow her down, only her heartbeat pounding like thunder in her chest. Into the darkness. The first few steps were the hardest. Every sound felt amplified, the crunch of dirt, the rustle of fabric. She kept low, moving behind stacked crates, then along the fence line. And then she heard it. A door opening. Voices. Her heart stopped. Had they seen her? She froze. Seconds felt like hours. But the voices drifted back inside. She didn't wait again. She ran. The forest. The tree line loomed closer with every breath. The moment she crossed into the forest, everything changed. The air felt different, cooler, wild. Branches scratched her arms as she pushed deeper between the trees. Behind her, shouting erupted. They had noticed. Dogs began barking. Lantern lights flickered at the edge of the plantation. They were coming. The chase. She ran without direction, only away. Roots twisted beneath her feet. Thorns tore at her skin. She stumbled, but didn't stop. The forest was alive with night sounds, insects, wind, distant owls. But the most terrifying sound was the barking. Closer now. She could hear men yelling commands. Her lungs burned. Her legs felt like stone. But she kept running, because stopping meant chains. Stopping meant worse. A dangerous decision. After what felt like miles, she slowed. The barking had faded slightly. She leaned against a tree, gasping. The forest was thick. Moonlight barely reached the ground. She knew something important. Running blindly would kill her faster than the hunters. She needed direction. North. She had once overheard a whisper, "North leads to freedom," but she didn't know which way was north. Panic tried to rise. She forced it down. Look at the stars. She had seen older workers use the night sky to guide themselves. Through the branches, she found it, the North Star. Small, steady, unmoving. That would be her guide. Hunger and fear. Hours passed. Her pace slowed to a painful walk. Every sound felt her flinch. What if the dogs picked up her scent again? What if she ran in circles? What if freedom was just a story? Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since morning. She found a small stream and dropped to her knees, drinking desperately. The water was cold, refreshing, but she couldn't stay long. She moved again. The sound behind her. Just when she allowed herself a moment of hope, a branch snapped, not far behind. Her body went rigid. Another snap. Someone is in the forest, and they're moving carefully, not crashing like hunters, but stalking. Her breathing became shallow. She slowly stepped backward, keeping her eyes on the darkness. And then she saw it. A lantern light. Far, but real. They were still searching. The lantern light moved slowly between the trees. She pressed her back against the rough bark, forcing herself not to breathe too loudly. Every instinct told her to run, but her legs trembled with exhaustion. Running now would make noise. Noise meant discovery. The voices grew closer, men speaking in low tones, their words carried by the wind. She couldn't make out everything, but she heard enough. Can't be far. Dogs lost the scent near the water. Her heart pounded so loudly she feared they could hear it. She lowered herself carefully to the ground, crawling behind a fallen tree covered in wet leaves. The earth was cold beneath her hands. Mud soaked into her clothes, but she didn't move. A shadow passed between the trees. Then another. Lantern light swept across the forest floor, stopping only a few feet from where she hid. She closed her eyes. If they looked down, it would be over. The moment of silence. Time stretched painfully. The forest seemed to hold its breath with her. One of the men stepped closer. His boots crushed leaves slowly, deliberately. The lantern light flickered across the trunk above her head. She felt panic rising again, clawing at her chest. Don't move. Don't breathe. A dog barked somewhere farther away, pulling the men's attention for a moment. "Over there," one voice said. The footsteps turned. The light moved away. She didn't wait again. The light moved away. She didn't move for minutes after the sounds faded. Her body shook uncontrollably, the fear finally escaping in silent tremors. She was still alive, but barely. Rain in the darkness. Clouds gathered above the forest, hiding the moon completely. A soft rain began to fall, turning the ground slick and cold. For the first time that night, she allowed herself a small piece of hope. Rain could wash away her scent. The dogs would struggle now. But rain also meant danger. The forest paths became harder to see. Roots and stones disappeared beneath mud and water. One wrong step could break an ankle, and that would be the end. Still, she moved forward. North. Always north. Memories that push forward. As she walked, memories returned uninvited. Long days in the fields, the sound of shouting, the feeling of never belonging to herself. She remembered older voices whispering stories at night, stories about freedom, about places where no one owned another human being. Most people stopped believing those stories after years passed, but she never did. That belief was the only thing keeping her moving now. Freedom had to be real,
Otherwise, all this suffering meant nothing. Lost in the endless trees. Hours passed. The forest no longer felt like protection. It felt endless. Every direction looked the same. Her steps slowed as exhaustion returned stronger than before. Her feet ached from stones and thorns. Her hands were scratched and bleeding. She leaned against a tree, fighting the urge to sleep. Sleeping in the open forest could mean never waking up again. She forced herself.
Morning brings no mercy. When she woke, the first thing she felt was pain. Not sharp pain, not sudden pain, but deep, crushing exhaustion that had settled into her bones. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then the smell of damp wood and dust returned her to reality. The cabin, the forest, the escape. Her heart jumped as she sat upright, listening carefully. Silence. No voices. No barking. Only wind brushing against the broken shutters. She crawled toward the doorway and peered outside. Sunlight filtered gently through tall trees, casting long shadows across the ground. It looked peaceful. Too peaceful. She knew better than to trust calm. The hunt continues. Miles away, the men searching for her had not rested. Boots pressed into soft soil near the riverbank. One of them crouched down, examining the mud carefully. "She went through the water," he muttered. Another man scanned the forest ahead. "She's smart. Smart." The word almost sounded like a compliment, but in their tone it was a challenge. They mounted their horses again, moving north, slowly, methodically. The hunt had changed. This was no longer just about retrieving what they believed was theirs. It was about pride, and pride could be deadly. Trees, the weight of freedom. Back at the cabin, she forced herself to stand. Resting longer meant danger. She stepped outside cautiously. The forest looked different in daylight, less terrifying, more alive. But beauty meant nothing if it led to capture. She turned her face upward, searching the sky for direction. North, always north. She stepped away from the cabin, leaving no sign she had been there. Every movement now required strategy. She avoided open patches of land. She walked on rocks whenever possible. She broke small branches behind her to confuse direction. She was learning, adapting, surviving. By midday, her hunger became unbearable. Her body had burned everything it had during the escape. Now there was nothing left. Her hands trembled as she searched for anything edible. She found small berries growing on a low bush. She hesitated. Were they safe? She remembered watching others gather food before. Dark berries on thin stems. She tasted one cautiously. Sour, but not bitter. She ate slowly, forcing herself not to devour them all at once. It wasn't much, but it kept her standing. Shadow in the trees. As the sun lowered, something shifted in the air. The forest grew quiet again. Too quiet. She stopped walking, listened. A branch snapped somewhere behind her. Not loud, careful, deliberate. Her chest tightened. Were they that close already? She moved quickly behind a thick oak tree, pressing her body flat against the bark. The sound came again, closer. Footsteps, not crashing like hunters before. This was someone moving cautiously. She held her breath, and then she saw him. A stranger appeared. A man stepped between the trees, not dressed like the others. His clothes were simple, worn. No horse, no lantern, no weapon visible. He looked just as startled to see her as she was to see him. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Her mind raced. Was he part of the hunt or something else? He slowly raised his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly. His voice was calm, not angry, not commanding, just calm. but she had learned long ago that words could lie. Trust or run. Her legs were weak. Running again might mean collapse, but trusting a stranger might mean chains. He glanced behind him. They're searching near the river. You won't outrun them on open ground. How did he know? Was this a trap? He stepped back slightly, giving her space. There's a place north of here, safe, but you have to move before dark. North. The word echoed inside her. He knew direction, he knew about safety, but he also knew about the hunters. Her heartbeat pounded. Every choice now felt like life or death. A dangerous alliance. Finally, she nodded once. Not because she trusted him completely, but because staying alone might be worse. They walked with distance between them. They never walked too close, never reached for her. That small detail mattered. As they moved deeper into the forest, he spoke quietly. "There are people who help," he said. "Not many, but enough." Help. The word felt unfamiliar. She had survived by expecting nothing from anyone. Could freedom truly have allies? Darkness falls again. Night approached quickly. The forest returned to shadow. They moved carefully over uneven ground, avoiding obvious paths. In the distance, faint shouts echoed again. The hunters were still moving, still searching. Her fear returned stronger than before, but something else joined it now. Hope, small, fragile, but real. Firelight in the distance. After hours of walking, she saw it, a faint glow between the trees, not lantern light swinging wildly, but steady, controlled. The man stopped. "We're close," he whispered. Her legs nearly gave out from relief, but relief was dangerous. As they stepped closer, she saw a small hidden clearing, a half-covered structure by trees, a safe house, or so she hoped. The gunshot in the dark. The gunshot shattered the silence of the forest. Birds screamed into the night sky. The sound echoed through the trees like thunder. She froze. The man beside her tightened his grip on her arm for only a second, then released it. "Run," he whispered. Lantern lights flickered violently through the trees behind them. Voices, angry, close, too close. Her body reacted before her mind could comprehend. She ran. Kawasing the forest. Branches tore at her sleeves as she pushed forward. The forest that once hid her now felt like a maze designed to trap her. Another gunshot rang out, closer. A bullet struck a tree trunk somewhere behind her. Wood splintered. She stumbled but didn't fall. The man ran beside her now. "Stay low," he hissed. Dogs began barking again. The river trick had only slowed them. It had not stopped them. Surrounded. Lantern lights suddenly appeared ahead of them. She stopped short. Another group of men emerged from the trees. They had spread out, cutting off escape paths. Her chest tightened. There was nowhere left to run. The man beside her turned quickly, scanning their options. "There," he whispered, pointing toward a steep slope covered in thick brush. It looked nearly impossible to climb, but impossible was better than captured. The climb. They scrambled up the slope, gripping roots and stones. The ground was wet and unstable. Behind them, shouting erupted. "They're going up!" Boots pounded against the earth. Dogs lunged at the base of the hill, barking wildly. Her arms burned as she pulled herself higher. Her legs trembled violently. Halfway up, her foot slipped. She slid back several feet, scraping her hands against sharp rocks. Pain shot through her palms. She cried out softly. The man grabbed her wrist just before she fell further. "Don't stop," he urged. She forced herself upward again. Into the fog. At the top of the slope, a thick fog rolled between the trees, dense, blinding. It was as if the forest itself had decided to intervene. They stumbled forward into it. Within seconds, visibility dropped to only a few feet. The shouting behind them became confused. Where did they go? Spread out.
Lantern lights glowed faintly through the mist, but direction became impossible to judge. Her heart pounded. This was their only chance. The sacrifice. Suddenly, the man stopped. She turned toward him. "You have to keep going," he said. Her stomach dropped. "What?" "I'll lead them the other way." "No," she whispered instinctively. He gave a firm look. "They're closer to me than you. If we split, they'll follow movement." Fear filled her chest. "You don't even know me," she said quietly. He gave a faint, almost sad smile. "I know enough." Without waiting for her answer, he moved in the opposite direction, crashing deliberately through brush to make noise. Within seconds, shouts followed him. "There! They went that way!" Lantern lights shifted, boots thundered, dogs changed direction. She stood frozen for a moment. He was giving her time, and time was freedom. Alone again. She forced herself to move north again. The fog swallowed.
The lantern didn't move. That was the first thing she noticed. Hunter's lights always moved, fast, restless, aggressive. This one was steady, calm. Her breathing slowed slightly, but fear still gripped her chest like a tightening rope. The two figures stood just beyond the thinning tree line, one older, one younger. Neither wore plantation clothing. No horses nearby, no dogs, no weapons drawn. But she had learned something important in her life. Danger doesn't always announce itself. One of them stepped forward slowly, keeping his hands visible. "You made it," the older man said again, voice low and careful. "We saw the signal." Signal? Her mind raced. Then she remembered the carved arrow on the tree. This wasn't random. This was planned. A house that doesn't look like one. They led her quietly through a narrow trail she never would have noticed on her own. After several minutes, the trees opened to reveal a small structure almost completely hidden by thick branches and climbing vines. It looked abandoned, broken roof edges, weathered wood, no obvious signs of life. Perfect. The younger figure, a woman, opened the door gently and gestured her inside. Warm air touched her skin. Inside, a small fire burned low in a stone hearth. Simple furniture, blankets folded neatly, a bucket of water. It wasn't luxury, but it felt like something she hadn't felt in years. Safety. When the body finally stops fighting. The moment the door closed behind her, her strength collapsed. Her legs gave out. The woman caught her before she hit the floor. "You're safe here," the woman whispered softly. Safe. The word shattered something inside her. Tears poured from her eyes, not loud sobs, not screams, just silent tears that had waited too long. Her body shook uncontrollably. The older man closed the shutters tightly. "They're searching south of here," he said quietly, "but they won't stop." They helped her sit near the fire. The warmth stung against her cold skin. For the first time since running into the forest, she allowed herself to cry. The first meal of freedom. The woman handed her a small piece of bread. Her hands trembled as she took it. She ate slowly at first, then faster. The taste of something warm, something given freely, felt almost unreal. "No rush," the woman said gently. But there was always rush, even here. Outside, the world was still hunting her. The truth about freedom. The older man sat across from her. "You crossed the river," he said. She nodded weakly. "You were lucky. Most don't make it that far." His words weren't cruel, just honest. "There are people," he continued, "who help others reach safety, but it's dangerous for everyone." She looked at him carefully. "Why?" she whispered. He didn't hesitate. "Because no one deserves chains." The room went quiet. In that silence, something shifted inside her. For the first time in her life, someone had spoken about her freedom as if it was obvious, as if it was natural, as if it was her right.
The hunters are closer than ever. Suddenly, a distant sound broke the calm. Hooves, not faint, not far. The older man stood immediately. The woman extinguished part of the fire, lowering the light. "They're tracking further north than we thought," he muttered. Her heart started pounding again. Even here, even after everything, she wasn't beyond their reach. The man moved quickly to a hidden trap door beneath a rug. "You may need to go under," he said firmly. Under. The word carried weight, but she didn't hesitate. She had survived too much to be caught now. Beneath the floorboards, the trap door opened to a small underground space, tight, dark, barely enough room to lie down. She climbed inside. The woman placed a small blanket beside her. "If anything happens, stay silent," she whispered. The door closed above her. Darkness swallowed her again. Footsteps thundered outside the cabin, voices, angry, demanding. Her breathing became shallow. She pressed her mouth against her hand to stay silent. Above her, boots entered the cabin. Wood creaked. A man's voice growled, "We're looking for a runaway." Silence. Then the older man's calm reply, "No one's come through here." Her heart pounded violently. A boot struck something. Furniture moved. Another voice said, "Check outside." Time stretched painfully. She counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3. Minutes felt endless. Then, finally, the footsteps retreated. The door slammed. Hooves faded into the distance. A new understanding. When the trap door opened again, the woman's face appeared, lit softly by lantern light. "They're gone," she whispered. She crawled out slowly. Her entire body trembled, not from fear this time, but from realization. These people had risked everything for her. If they were caught helping her, their lives would be destroyed too. "Why?" she asked again, voice barely audible. The older man looked at her steadily. "Because someone once did the same for us." That answer stayed with her. Freedom wasn't just escape, it was connection. It was courage passed from one person to another. The turning point. As night deepened again, they explained the path ahead. "This is only the first stop," said the woman. "You'll move again tomorrow night, further north." "There are safe places," the older man added, "but each step gets harder." Harder. She nodded slowly. She understood now. Freedom wasn't one moment. It was a journey, a chain of risks, a network of brave souls, and she was now part of it. Cliffhanger ending, Part 3A. Just before dawn, as silence settled again, a loud knock exploded against the cabin door. Not the wild pounding of hunters, but firm, controlled. 3 knocks, a pause, 2 more. The older man froze. The woman's face went pale. "That's not the search party," he whispered. Her heart pounded once more. If it wasn't the hunters, then who was at the door? And was this help or a new kind of danger?